Hey everybody, Mark Kelly, Mr. Saltwater Tank. I'm actually home for 48 hours, coming to you on the Monday evening Q&A with yours truly. Let you enjoy the view. I can't. There. There for a minute while we get people queued up into the stream. I think they already destroyed that nori. That's about how long nori lasts in my tank. Like a minute, maybe, if that. They mow it down. They love it. Hey, Hawkins Aquatics, thanks for being first. Welcome to the Q&A on it's Monday, right? I've lost track of the days. You know what? I'm going to go get some more nori. You all hang out for a minute. That way you have them to look at. I can't believe they mowed it down already. I'll be right back. Hey, look at that. Thanks Harkins for shopping with us. They won a Phillips Coral Kill Light for us during our 10-year anniversary celebration. Look at this. Jason won one as well. Congrats, thanks you all for shopping. Everyone who shopped with us, especially congrats to those of you who won as part of the giveaways. Oh, Brian's, here you go. Brian's firing it off with our first question of the night. Do I feed my anemones, and how often? What do you recommend feeding? So, I think I can get it from here. Almost. Keep trying. Come on, right there. Okay, this is there. There. What? You get a kick out of this. Right there. Chicago sunburst anemone from the Extreme Coral, Tank It Easy guys, or the Insane Corals, pardon me, right there. So Brian, what do I feed this thing? I actually don't feed anemones. I don't feed that Chicago Sunburst. When I had my pink sea bait, which I missed that thing horribly, would occasionally feed it mysis shrimp or small amount of chopped table shrimp, but for the most part, they don't need it. Especially if it's healthy and your tank is doing well, then they really don't need to be fed. If you want to do it just to bump them up a little bit, you can. However, it's not something that if you don't feed them, they're not going to make it, or if they're not doing well by feeding them, all of a sudden you're going to turn them around. But if you do feed them, remember, they don't need tons of food. You don't need to give them a whole shrimp. A lot of times that's too much for the anemone to take. If you want to feed them like table shrimp, I chopped it up into like half of my fingernail size, Brian. Or I would get mysis shrimp, turn off my flow, and squirt a little bit at them. They don't need a lot. But I don't feed my sea anemones. They do just fine without it. Thanks, Mike. Tell me that the tank looks awesome. And Omar as well. Yep, those pyramids came in last week. What was last week? I don't remember. Week before. I don't remember. 2 weeks ago. Sure, why not? That sounds good. I have 7 pyramid butterflies direct from Australia, from Cairns Marine. Got to give it a shout out to anyone from Australia, any mates on the live stream with us tonight. Those guys are reef safe. We get questions about those a lot. Nearly 100% reef safe. I've heard of one or two nipping at a coral occasionally, but I've never heard one of flat out and destroying them. Now, they may be out there. We're still dealing with animals. Keep that in mind. However, These guys are a great reef-safe butterfly that you could put in your tank. They look great. I get tons of compliments on them. I only buy them out of Australia. They do way better than pyramids from anywhere else in the world, and they look fantastic. A nice addition to the reef. These guys came in big. I would have actually preferred to get them a little smaller, but that's all right. They're doing well. They're eating well. They came out of the box after being in transport for 70 hours and eating and doing just well. Proof in the pudding about Australia fish being stronger and better. That's just a better animal every time. Every single time that I can get an animal out of Australia, I will absolutely do it. I'll pay the premium if there is one. It's just a better animal with a smaller and shorter supply chain. Love it. All right. Hawk Harkins wants to know, remember they won the Phillips Coral Care Light during our 10-year celebration. How high do I recommend mounting the light? All right, Harkins. So there's kind of a give and take here on the light. I like to mount my lights a little bit taller. The lights on my tank now are what? Oh, they're a good foot off the water. And some light manufacturers recommend getting it down to like 8 inches. That way the light more efficiently gets in the tank. I found the newer LEDs they have no problem cranking out the light. So I'm okay raising them off the water to get more spread and then turning up the intensity. I've yet to find one of these LED lights, Coral Care, Radions, AI Primes, Hydras, HDs, all that stuff. Even with the Neptune Skies, they crank out tons of light. So putting them a little bit higher and turning up the intensity is not a problem. And it gives you room to work around the tank. I like keeping those lights off the water. 12 inches is what I like. I've kept them as high as 15 sometimes, and they do just fine. Great question. All right, Jeff, I get this one a lot. How do I feel about distilled water as opposed to RODI? Here's the thing about distilled water you want to keep in mind, Jeff. If you can guarantee that it was not distilled on copper coils, then it's likely okay to use it. However, if it's distilled on copper coils, it's going to have a higher copper content, and inverts in your tank, coral, shrimp, snails, things like that, they cannot tolerate copper. It will kill them every time. Disclaimer, likely you're not going to have a high enough copper concentration that it's going to cause death, but it can cause irritation. It can cause those inverts in those corals not to do as well, especially longer term. Most of the time, people don't know how that distilled water was condensed, what it was condensed on. Therefore, I like to put the ball in my court, keep control of my water, and use RODI water. So that's how I feel about the two. Certainly, I like having more control and more transparency. I want to know where my water is coming from, exactly how it was prepared. Therefore, I make my own RODI water. Oh, great. Here we go. Look, here's a fish-only question. We don't get those a lot. Nothing wrong with fish-only tanks. A lot of us are reefers out there. So Rebecca, a lady reefer at that. Shout out to all the lady reefers who are with us tonight. So your 55-gallon tank, the old 55-gallon tank that probably nearly everyone in the saltwater aquarium world has had at some point, got it cycled, going to get some livestock this weekend. So she's going to do a fish-only tank. No corals just yet. Don't worry, that will come. The addiction gets everyone. Just getting the hang of the fish for now. Any recommendations on some good starter fish for a 55-gallon fish-only tank? All right, Rebecca. There's a couple of good ones out there that I like. Midas Blennies. Here's one right there. Those guys are a lot of fun. They're good looking. They have not really fully formed swim bladders, so they kind of swim like an eel. Even you can kind of get a good sense of how this one is swimming here. So I like those. These zebra bar dartfish, I really like these right there, these long skinny guys. So they will hang out right below the water surface. Make sure you have a lid on your tank because they can jump out. Those are great starter fish. A pair of clownfish. I used to recommend blue-green chromis, but I've really gotten away from that. They tend to just whittle themselves down where there's one left. Whatever fish you buy, make sure that it's quarantined. Don't risk wiping out your new tank or bringing disease into the new tank by buying a non-quarantined fish. So certainly do that. Those are some great recommendations for starter fish, and enjoy it. And just know that once you get into coral, it becomes even more addicting, and it's just part of it. Nothing wrong with that, just giving you a heads up. All right, XX Plastic XX. How many hours a day should carbon run? 24/7? Yes, absolutely. Just leave it running 24/7. If you turn off the media reactor, especially if you turn it off for a longer amount of time, the water in there can go stagnant, everything in there can die. Then you can dump nutrient-laden water into your tank and some water that has noxious gases. So just leave it running 24/7. You don't need to worry about turning it on and off. Barbara, thanks for the comment here. The tank looks spectacular. Thank you very much. It's certainly coming into itself. I'm enjoying it. Someone was asking me the other day how many fish I have in here. Good question. We ran a contest a couple weeks ago to guess the number of fish. At that time, I had 48. I'm guessing at this point, considering what I've put in, I'm got to be pushing 80, if not more, and certainly have some more on the list. It looks fairly full to me. I would like to have another 50-ish type Anthias to really make it feel full, but the tank is doing well. Don't have any nutrient issues in the tank, and the coral is growing, all going well. Oh, here's one of those fun questions. Nino, do you think it's worth chasing pH with a CO2 scrubber? Here's my answer that I discovered 10 years ago when I tried it on my old 90-gallon tank. For those of you who have been with me that long, thanks for watching for 10 years. Do I think it's worth chasing pH with a CO2 scrubber? The answer is no, not worth it. For one, I've run tanks with pH all over the board. I just came from a client's tanks. Let me actually take a look. It usually runs high. Let's see where it's running today. So their pH in that tank is 8.38 currently. It varies somewhere between 8.3 and 8.5. Tank grows coral really well. My 90-gallon tank pH ranged between 7.7 and 7.9. It grew coral really well. This tank behind me, which is growing coral quite well, I'm quite happy with it. Its pH right at the moment is 7.79. It's doing just fine. So I don't recommend chasing pH with a CO2 scrubber. First of all, because your tank will likely be fine no matter where your pH is. Then it takes a lot of media to really drop CO2 to then raise pH. Then that media blows out very quickly. When I tried it, I would blow through media about once every 2 weeks. So I'm constantly buying media. I'm constantly replenishing the media in the scrubber, which costs money and effort, things that I wasn't really into. And the results out of doing that were not there. The tank went just fine with a lower pH. It's done just fine with a higher pH. And what did I actually get out of all that effort? My pH went up 0.1. That was it. And look, if your pH is 8.2 or 8.3 or 7.8 like this tank is right now, or 7.9, you're not going to know the difference in coral growth. You might think you do because your mind's tricking you. It's trying to justify it. But no, I don't recommend chasing pH with a CO2 scrubber. I don't recommend chasing parameters at all. I was talking to a client the other day who wanted to try to get the balance of phosphate and nitrate right. I'm like, just let your tank tell you what it likes. Nitrates in here are maybe 1. Maybe. I checked the phosphates yesterday. They were 0.01. Everything's doing fine. I've run tanks with high nitrates and low phosphates, high phosphates, low nitrates, all over the board. I'm big on letting the tank tell you what it wants as opposed to trying to squeeze it in a box, hit some kind of numbers, or make it do something that it might not want to do. I've seen more people make more mistakes trying to get to some ideal parameters or ideal ratios. Just let the tank tell you what it likes and come into itself, and then you respond. Great question. Wow. Look at this. 20 years back. All right, John from Vermont, new to the channel, welcome. Left the hobby 20 years ago after 2 major crashes, but I'm back. So I have a 1500 cade that I'm in the process of adding fish. Cycled for 4 months. All right, John, would love to see a picture of your tank from 20 years ago. If you have that, send it to us at sales@saltwateraquarium.com. I would be really interested to see what the tank looked like, what your tank back then looked like. That was about the time, 20 years ago was 2001. So go back another 10 years, that's when I had my first tank. But so I'm curious about what yours looked like 20 years ago. That would be really cool. All right, Jacqueline. Jacqueline wants to know, will Mimic Tangs be aggressive towards other tangs? Here's the thing about Mimic Tangs, Jacqueline. They are in the Acanthorus genus. The thing about Acanthorus is they tend to be the most bad-tempered, grumpy tangs out there. It's not uncommon for them to be aggressive to other fish. For those of you that have kept powder blues, you know that sometimes they can be aggressive. Guess what? They're in the Acanthorus genus as well. I have 2 Acanthorus in my tank. There's one just over my head that is Achilles gold rim hybrid. There's another one right there. That's my other Achilles gold rim hybrid. When I put this hybrid in the tank, see, look at that. He's chasing around my gem tang. Proof in the pudding. Acanthorus being a little grumpy. Yeah, buddy, back off. Trust me, the gem tang will stay. You'll go unless you get your behavior in a line. So this hybrid had to stay in that box, acclimation box, for five or 6 days until the original hybrid over there would be okay with it. This guy, the big one here, was literally trying to beat the snot out of the other hybrid in the acclimation box. This is one of the reasons I like acclimation box. You want to put the new fish in the tank and see what happens. See if someone doesn't like it. It's much easier to manage aggression when one fish is in the box. If you don't think they're going to make it, or the aggressor is not going to settle down, you can easily take the box out with the fish in it. This is much easier than trying to chase a fish and get it out of your tank. So the Achilles gold rim hybrid that went in second, he had to stay in here for 5, maybe 6 days because the first one was literally trying to beat the snot out of it through the box. For the first day and a half, it would not leave the acclimation box. The aggressor would go in there and chase them. They would just literally sit at the box, would kind of like try to strike at the box. It would swim maybe 6 inches away and come right back and try to do it again. I said, all right, I'm just going to let this hang out. The Achilles gold rim hybrid that was in the box, he was eating. He eventually settled down, and I saw that when the hybrid in the box didn't try to react to the hybrid outside of the box being aggressive, a couple days later, the Achilles gold rim hybrid that was in my tank settled down. I let them out, and for the most part, they get along. Every now and then they bicker. For the most part, they're getting along. If I had put that Achilles gold rim hybrid in my tank and just let it go, it would have been a disaster. I bet the hybrid that was in there would have killed the new one that I put in. So I like acclimation boxes. We have a lot of them over at saltwateraquarium.com. Some different options for you. You can certainly grab one there. One of the things that I picked up from a client is using an acclimation box, and Laura from Cans Marine, her recommendation to do it. It's a great way to put the odds in your favor and help the new fish coming into your tank have a great transition in, especially for those of you that have a stock tank, and especially those of you that have a stock tank that has been stocked that way for a while. You haven't put anything new in the tank. All of a sudden you put in a new fish, can mix up territories. Fish that were not aggressive can all of a sudden become aggressive. So I like acclimation boxes. I recommend that you use them. If you want to pick up this box, this is an Octo Aquatics box. You can pick it up from Octo Aquatics, and they have that there. Definitely a big fan of using them. Just remember, Jacqueline, the old Mimic Tang can be aggressive. I would suspect that it would be a more aggressive tang in your tank just because of their genus. Remember, we're dealing with fish. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But the Acanthorus is kind of predisposed to put that, to be aggressive. So keep an eye on that. All right, let's see. We got some great questions tonight. Lots of fish questions. Milton wanted to know what's buried in the box over here. Nothing at the moment, Milton. I put in some scissor-tail dartfish, which are right here. Here's a fun starter fish. You're going to need a lid for these guys because they like to jump. They're a lot of fun, so I put 6 of those in. They went in the acclimation box just to see what everyone thought of them. No one paid them any mind, so they got released last night. So that's nothing in the box at the moment, but that's what was in there. Oh, Greg Carroll. Greg Carroll, the man, the father of Reefapalooza. Got to give shout out to Greg out in SoCal, buddy. By the way, if you're in Orlando or you feel the need to get away this weekend, Reefapalooza Orlando is happening. Guess where? Orlando. Saltwater Aquarium will be there. We will have a booth here's a hint. You know what? Let's text the boss. Let's see if I can announce what we're going to do about Reefapalooza. Just a minute. Got to get approval before I go spill something I'm not supposed to do. All right. So Reefapalooza Orlando is happening this weekend in Orlando, Florida. We will be there. We will have a booth. Come say hi. I'll be there on Saturday. Please, if you watch the show, if you shop with us, if you're there, just come by and say hi. We would love to see you at the booth. Hannah Instruments will be sharing a booth with them as well. So there's lots of good stuff going on, especially for those of you that are wanting to get out and you feel like it's safe to go venture out again. Orlando's waiting for you. Come visit us. Come have a great show. Reefapalooza never disappoints. Speaking of not disappointed, here we go. So at our booth, at saltwateraquarium.com's booth this weekend at Reefapalooza, we're going to have, now this is just for people who are at the show, just at our booth. If you're at Reefapalooza Orlando, come to our booth, 10% off. Hannah Instruments, Neptune Systems. Yes, you heard that right. Again, disclaimer, just for people who are at the show. You got to buy it at our booth at the show. 10% off Neptune Systems and 10% off Seashay. So some of the bigger brands in the saltwater aquarium industry, they will be at the show, and you can pick up their gear 10% off at our booth at the show only. All right, Greg, I hope you're going to go have an In-N-Out burger because I can't get them. Double with cheese, animal style, and a strawberry shake sounds really good right now, even though I just ate dinner. I have a hole in my stomach that, or it's a tapeworm, or one of those worms. Maybe it's a bobbit worm slowly eating away at me. All right. Robert wants to know, what would you suggest to remove Vermetid snails without removing the live rock? All right. Those little snails that build a shell and then can throw out webs and irritate coral, I have not found them to kill coral. Sometimes they irritate coral. How do you get rid of them without moving the live rock? A couple different ways. One, you can smash them. Grab your coral snips, your bone cutters. You want to get down on their shell a little bit, smash it, and then rip it apart. Now, if you have a lot of them, I'm sorry, it's going to take you a while, but that's one way to do it. Other people have made a calc paste and put it right on the snail. I would say snail, but they don't really move around. It's really more, it looks more like a worm. You can do that as well. Some people have used arrow crabs. Really, I've seen them in my tanks sometimes, and I just ignore them. They might annoy a coral here or there, but I certainly have not found them to harm the coral, so I just let it go. Great question. All right, Brandon. Oh, here's a fun question. Brandon MMS, that's like text message. Sorry, that's just what popped into my head, Brandon. Do lawnmower blennies actually eat green hair algae? I've never seen mine do it. All right, here's a hint, Brandon. Yes, lawnmower blennies will eat green hair algae, but if your lawnmower blenny or any other fish in your tank that usually eats algae isn't eating algae, that can be a hint to you or a clue that the algae in your tank is Bryopsis. Bryopsis is thought not to taste good to fish, or it can also thought to kill snails. So if nothing is eating your green hair algae, you may have Bryopsis. Easy treatment for that is a medication called Reflux. We have it at saltwateraquarium.com. Very easy to use. I just recommended it to a client who's dealing with a Bryopsis outbreak. It works well. I used it on my old 450 to deal with Bryopsis, and it worked quite well. So that may be a giveaway that what you're dealing with, Brendan, is Bryopsis. Give that a whirl and see how it works for you. It may be Bryopsis you're dealing with, not actually green hair algae. All right, Miguel wants to know how Mulligan is doing. For those of you that don't know, Mulligan is my blue spot jawfish. Haven't seen him in a while, given that he's a low temperature fish. I'd like to see how he's doing. Do I have advice on having one? Okay, Mulligan is still with me. He moved. He's on the other side of the tank. He seems to move once every 2 weeks for a day or two, then he comes back to his home down here. So right now, he's on the other side of the tank, underneath the Wilsoni. He's doing just fine, Miguel. He's like a pig, lots of personality. Actually, I have 3 more in quarantine to put them in the tank. While they are thought to be a low temperature fish, I've had great success with them when I get them from Live Aquarius Divers Den. That's where Mulligan came from. That's where I get them for clients' tanks. they do quite well. Keep in mind they do jump. They can jump out, so you want a tight fitting lid. They also seem to do better when you give them things to kind of play with. They like to build a yard, build a cave. So that small calcium reactor rubble, that's a good thing. You can give them empty shells, small bits of live rock rubble. We're not talking very big, like less than half the size of my pinky nail here. You can sprinkle that around where they live. They'll build a little cave for themselves, which seems to make them feel better. So he's doing quite well. He's just hanging on the other side of the tank. If I'm home next Monday, which I don't even know if I am, then I will certainly put him back on camera. Great question. Greg's giving us a high five. I dig it. Oh, Daniel going with the LPS question tonight. Do Goniopora and Alveopora play nice next to one another? Absolutely. Gonies and Alveoporas, you can put them next to one another. It's one of those great instances where you can stack these corals together. You can make like a Goni garden. Not to worry about that. You can do that, no sweat. I haven't had as much success with the Alveoporas. I don't even buy them anymore. That looks pretty. I haven't had success, so I tend to just buy Gonies. I have a Goniopora garden right here in my tank, just over my shoulder. Got a red, a purple, a really nice one I got from the Insane Coral crew, a green one. So, yeah, you can absolutely stack those together, Daniel. They do quite well. All right, Ian, here we go. Here's a fun question, because this is one of the times I will feed a coral. Ian wants to know, you have a hammer coral, which has a lot of tissue loss from a salinity swing. Dalmatio mistakes, we've all been there. It's now 2 weeks out and it's still hanging in there. Any care or tips or tricks? All right, Ian, this is one of those times where I will feed a coral, especially a hammer coral. I like the... Hang on. I like the Fauna Marin LPS Grow Plus Coral Pellets. These guys are what I would feed to your hammer. They comes in different sizes. This is the size L. So you guys probably can't see this, and since I can't defy gravity. So this thing is here. No, that's not. So they're not too big, but they're sizable. You can sprinkle 2 of these in the hammer every couple days, and that can help it recover. So we carry that there at saltwaterquarium.com. I like to feed corals, especially LPS, when they are struggling. They need some help to get them going again. LPS respond well to food. Other corals I don't feed. I'm not a fan of feeding corals. But Ian, this is something that you can pick up, which will likely help your hammer if it's going to recover. Good luck with that. Love hammer corals. And good luck. I would love to hear about the success with that. Does it work for you or not? I'm getting the text here just a second. There we go. All right. There. Good luck with that, Ian. Let's see. Can't answer that one. Sorry, Brian. Can't talk about this guy just yet. Maybe soon. Muhammad. Look at this. 40-gallon breeder. Fun starter tank. Been running for 4 months. What kind of corals would be good to start with? All right, Muhammad. There's a couple good ones right in the tank behind me. Gorgonians. That's a nice soft coral that's easy to keep. I like that one. That's an easy keeper. What else? Zoanthids. I have a zoanthid garden going over here. That's starting to come together. I like that one as well. Purple Milka Stylo. That's an easy keeper coral. It's an SPS, but I found it to do quite well. You get yourself a hammer coral like Ian had. Easy keeper, fun coral that looks really great. Its tentacles move around. Always is a favorite with your friends or if your spouse, if you have one. So all those are great starter corals. Congrats on kicking over the new tank and getting it up and rolling and starting into corals. All right, here we go. Going back to a similar question. Well, I was talking about not chasing tank parameters. Is 420 or 450 a better calcium level? Here's the thing. Both will work just fine. If your calcium is 420 or 450, everything in your tank will do just fine. It's not like corals are going to die because your calcium is 420 instead of 450. So look, newbie reefer, If you're in the 380 to 500 range on calcium, that's all good. Don't worry about trying to raise it or lower it. Just let it ride. I found it's better just to let the tank do its thing as opposed to trying to chase a number. So, good question there. Thanks for testing your tank's parameters. I've always found that important, especially when you're a new reefer, just trying to understand your tank, understand how everything fits together. Testing and writing down your results is a great way to see trends, understand trends, and really understand your tank. It's like, for those of you that remember Karate Kid from the 80s, wax on, wax off, Mr. Miyagi, same thing. Just follow the steps, test your tank's water twice a week, write down the results. That's you, Mr. Cherry. If you're watching, I know you don't do that, by the way. Do it. You'll be surprised what you learn. Like, over time, look, you're going to probably do it less, but until you take the basics, learn your tank, you won't know what it's telling you because you're not listening. All right. Ooh, freestyle traveler. I wish. Would love to go out in the country, hopefully soon. Will the Tridacna Clam pull nitrates out of the water column? Here's the thing. Maybe some. I've heard that they do that, but it's not like if you put in a Tridacna, all of a sudden your nitrate's going to go from 10 to 5 or 2 to 1. They might pull some, but don't expect it to make a dent in your water quality. Good question. Let's see. Let's fire off another 2 tonight. Awesome. Thanks, Russ. So Russ was asking earlier about a CO2 scrubber question. So your pH is 7.7 to 7.9. Glad that you're not chasing it. Leave it how it is. Your tank will be just fine. Let's see here. Huh. What? Okay. I'm laughing because nothing wrong with this question. Keith wants to know. So I'm behind on getting your reef tank going. That's cool. It happens. We understand. Is it okay to set up as a freshwater then convert it to later? Like after your cichlid dies? Of course I would change down the substrate. Okay, here's the thing. Your cichlid's probably never going to die. Those things are like hardy as all get out. I set up a tank for a client once. I transitioned him from what I was told was a 90-gallon corner tank into a 120. So I was like, oh, I just have to make up a little bit of water. Turned out that 90 corner was actually a 60 corner tank. So I had to dechlorinate some water, put it in with the tank. Those cichlids were breeding the day that I took them out of that 90 corner and put them in the 120. And the next day after they're in there, they started breeding again. Like, these things are bulletproof. So your cichlid is probably never going to die. So why even spend the time? If you're behind on getting your reef gang going, look, take another month or two, build up what you need, get it going. Don't even worry about going to freshwater. Look, even if you just start the tank with just fish, that's cool. The point is just get it started. I was talking to a colleague about this last week. See, a lot of people, they're like, I got to have the lights, and I got to have a top off, and I got to have a controller, and I got to have the right pump, and I got to have enough rock, like, before I start my tank. That's what some people say. And look, I get it. I'm kind of that type too. I like to kind of get everything together, look it over, see how it's going to piece together, and then get things going. But with a saltwater tank, like, just get it going. Get it rolling, get your plumbing done, get your rock in there, get the tank going. It's about getting it started. Just like get the ball out onto the court. The more time that you give it to get up and get rolling, get it down its life, the better. So don't wait to start the tank until you have everything. Get it going, get its life going. You can always add on to it later. The more maturity your tank has, it's not going to hurt it. Great question, Keith. Look, I'm not a fan of freshwater tanks, but even so, take a deep breath, pause a little bit if you have to. Take the time, get your saltwater tank going, even if it's a fish-only tank first. Nothing wrong with that. You can always add corals in later. All right, everyone. Thanks for being with us on a Monday evening. I think I'm back, and I'm here next Monday, so I'll catch you same time, 7:30. I'll put Mulligan on there. For those of you that were asking about him, we'll see if he relocates. I bet he does. Thanks, everyone, for being with me. I'll catch you next week on the same same fish time, same fish channel. For those of you that remember Batman way back in the day, even before my time, And if you're in Orlando or you want to get away this weekend, Reefapalooza Orlando is happening. Saltwateraquarium.com. We will be there. We will have a booth. Remember, 10% off Hana systems, Hana instruments, Neptune systems, and Seashade for those of you that are at the show and shop with us at the booth. That's a at the show only special. So if you're coming or if you think you want to come, by all means, come by our booth. Get some great deals on some great gear. Get a chance to meet everyone, Greg, and the boss man, Ken, all of us, including myself. We'll be there, meet some of the people behind the scenes at saltwateraquarium.com and me, who's in front of the scenes. We'll catch you this weekend. I give up. This weekend at